Denver School Board and Superintendent announced plans to bring back armed police officers at high schools, at least for now.
Now, DPS does have its own security force, and our investigator Rick Salinger has learned that there were officers in the school at the time of the attack. He joins us tonight live from East High School with a look at that security force.
Michael, with all the calls to return police officers to the Denver public schools, often overlooked is that DPS has its own extensive security force. In fact, there were members of its staff on hand here the day of the shooting. When a student gunman opened fire, injuring a pair of administrators at East High School, there were two unarmed Denver Public School security officers inside at the time. A third had called in sick that day. They were not present where the shooting occurred. They are part of the force of 80 unarmed officers in schools and 22 armed personnel positioned in cars who answer calls to all schools. Michael Eaton was the chief of the DPS force for 11 years until recently.
In our comprehensive high schools, when SROs were removed, we did take on more risk, absolutely. And it was my job at the time to mitigate that risk.
He is clearly in favor of returning armed police officers to the schools. But the superintendent noted police may have been unable to prevent what happened Wednesday.
An armed officer, whether it was an SRO or an armed officer that happened to be on site, would have never patted down that student.
He explains a police officer would need probable cause to conduct a pat-down. DPS students seem mixed on the issue.
There's not as much protection, and anyone can bring in anything.
I don't feel like there should be police officers in a school. I mean, no guns in a school. That's the problem, guns.
The DPS Security Dispatch Center was fairly quiet on this day. All schools, including East, shut down for a mental health day. Signs will welcome students back with support. Yesterday, the Denver Public Schools Board decided to return police officers into the schools being armed. However, all the details still need to be worked out on financing and hiring of the officers to go to each of the schools. Live at East High School, Rick Salinger, covering Colorado First.
More to come on this conversation, no doubt about that, Rick. Thank you so much. Well, Denverites can vote on 3 school board positions this November. At-large Vice President Aonte Anderson and Scott Balderman for District 1 are both up for re-election. Charmaine Lindsay from District 5 is not running for re-election.
It is not yet known